Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Flash Season 6 review series, and today I'm going to be talking about episode 10, Marathon, and this is the first episode in the post-Crisis since the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, where we saw Oliver Queen make the ultimate sacrifice, and as a result of that, all of the Earths have fused together as one single world, which is dubbed Earth Prime, and lots of changes have already occurred in Batwoman and Supergirl, and we were also told that throughout the first half of Season 6 that in order for billions of lives to be saved during the events of the Crisis, the Flash had to die. So we was under the impression that it was going to be Barry Allen. Well, it was Barry Allen, but it wasn't Earth 1's Barry Allen, it was Earth 90's Barry Allen, who very smartly swapped places with Earth 1's Barry and puts himself in the firing line and made the ultimate sacrifice in stopping the anti-wave matter. So that was a really cool moment. So our Barry gets to live to fight another day. And in regards to the other changes that have been made within the Arrowverse, the Flash is no different, and as I've said in previous videos on other review series, those who are part of the Crisis event, who are dubbed the Paragons, are the only ones who remember the events of the Crisis, and everybody else who is not involved in that, all their old lives have been erased and essentially been rebooted. So this episode quickly shows us what changes have been made and so forth. And also, we are treated to a guest appearance from Arrow's John Diggle, and this is also the first time we've seen him since Arrow came to an end, where we saw John Diggle open a box and showing a green light. We are assuming that it contains the Green Lantern ring, but none of those things were addressed in this episode, so we don't know what is going to be developed with that story, but time will tell. So, with that all said, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the first episode of the post-Crisis, and that's episode 10, Marathon. We see Iris meets with a man named Gene Husk, who has previously worked at McCulloch Technologies for decades, only for a shady organisation to infiltrate the company and steal a prototype gun. Iris asks for him to go on the record anonymously, and he agrees. He then tells her that the shady organisation is called Black Hole. As he's telling Iris, an assassin kills someone with the prototype gun and receives her next target, Iris West. We then see Barry Allen arrive home with John Diggle in tow. John Diggle tells Iris and Barry that as part of Oliver's will and testament, Barry gets the mask that he first gave Oliver years ago back in Season 2 of Arrow. Barry inspects it and notices a bizarre smudge mark and questions if it's a secret message from Oliver. He enlists a reluctant Diggle in helping to figure out what it could be. Barry finds sediments on the mask which match Mirakuru and Lianu's soil. Barry suggests that Oliver wants him to find the remaining Mirakuru before it falls into the wrong hands. Now, for those of you who remember what Mirakuru was, it was like a drug that used to make everyone go crazy and have super strength. Deathstroke had it, and we will also remember that Roy Harper was a bit off his face with it. So this is the first time we've heard this drug being mentioned in quite a while, and it kind of brings back some epic memories of the earlier seasons of Arrow. Barry and Diggle travel to Lianu and find no traces of the Mirakuru, which Barry gets upset about, thinking he's failed Oliver. Diggle suggests that the sentiment was from Oliver bringing his suit to fight Slade Wilson years ago, and that there isn't a mission to deal with, and that Barry should enjoy the new world that Oliver sacrificed his life for. We also see Cisco stress out about the fate of the post-crisis Earth Prime and questions to Killer Frost if it was really a good thing. He reveals that he's made a binder of the metahumans and villains that still exist on Earth Prime. He then asks what Nash is going to do now that the multiverse is destroyed, and he reveals that he's going to protect his underground bunker to make sure no one else tries to wake up the Anti-Monitor. Later, Cisco confronts Nash about his true intentions and argues that he was selfish in helping to destroy the multiverse. Cisco later watches a holocube message from Harry Wells and tells Caitlin that he feels guilty about not having used his powers to prevent Crisis. Caitlin suggests that he uses his skills to help catalogue the new post-Crisis threat, even if that means him leaving Central City. Cisco tells Nash that he's leaving to explore Earth Prime and asks him to hold down the fort in his absence. As Cisco leaves, Nash takes a photograph out of his bag, revealing him and an alternate version of Allegra on an adventure that they had together many years before. We then see Iris and the rest of the staff at the Citizen come up with a timeline for Black Hole's organisation. Cecile, who is now the paper's legal advisor, questions if it's the right thing to do. Iris organises a formal meeting with McCulloch's CEO, Joseph Carver, but does not expect him to give an official comment. Iris meets with Carver, who has now taken over the company in the absence of Eva McCulloch, his wife. Iris confronts Carver about the gun, and he takes her to a secret part of the facility. Carver argues that Jean was paranoid and made up false information about the black hole. Iris decides to run the story anyway. Iris publishes the article and is immediately sued by McCulloch for defamation. Cecile detects that something is wrong, just as the assassin fires the gun through the Citizen office. Iris decides to find Jean and make sure he's safe, and asks the rest of the staff to escape on their own. Iris finds Jean, but he is immediately killed by the gun. Iris grabs Jean's security clearance card and drives away as the assassin slightly injures her. Iris then goes to Star Labs and figures out who the new assassin is, and it's Kumiyo Hiroshi, a new version of Dr. Light who went missing many years ago. Joe confronts Iris about pursuing the story and argues that defeating Black Hole won't happen overnight. Camilla, Joe, and Frost decide to organise a trap for Dr. Light, which ends up being a projection. Meanwhile, the real Iris confronts Carver and accuses him of being the leader of Black Hole. Carver doesn't deny it, but Iris accuses of not knowing the whole story. Iris reveals that she set up a dead man switch which will publish all of her information if anyone is killed. Dr. Light nearly kills Frost but is called off by Carver before she can finish the job. Later, Iris begins to suspect that Black Hole has something to do with Eva McCulloch's disappearance. She goes to McCulloch's building and finds her way to Eva's old office. As she is investigating, she is pulled inside by a pair of hands from within a mirror, and that's how this episode ends. And also in this episode we see Barry and Iris talk about their emotions have been fed during the post-crisis, and they both agree to take things slow. Overall, this was a pretty decent episode. This episode was more or less just about showing everyone what the changes were that were going on in this new Earth called Earth Prime, and we've got a little hint of who the main villain is going to be for season 6, and it looks like it's going to be Mirror Master, but we'll have to wait and see really. But I thought this episode was okay. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but as I said earlier, it's just more or less about setting up all the new changes that have been made in Earth Prime, and it was good to see Barry Allen and John Diggle working together. If John Diggle does indeed become the Green Lantern, I would definitely like to see those two work together more and channel in that classic relationship that Wally West and John Stewart had back in the Justice League animated series. But time will tell really. So I'm going to wrap this up now. What did you think of episode 10? Did you think it was good? What's your thoughts on the new changes in this new Earth with the Flash? Do you think they're good? And how do you think they will play out over the course of the second half of season 6? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. and I will be back next time for another edition of the Flash Season 6 review series, where I'm going to be talking about episode 11. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe.